So what about something like athletics? What's your opinion about that? Because if you divide the sports by biological sex, things are nice, clean, and simple. Once you start saying we
Nothing's clean and simple anymore.
well, probably not, but it's getting more complicated. But
Yeah.
it seems as if there's the team that the biological boys play on and the team that the biological girls play on. That's at least the way it was. But now that we've introduced this concept that, well, gender isn't necessarily what you were born with, so now we want to divide sports based on gender. And when it comes to gender, well, that means that the transgendered females play with the biological females. There is a question in there,
Yeah. Honestly, this is one of those issues that I feel there is truly no good solution to at this point. I think we've messed it up so bad there is just no solution, because at the end of the day, so let's use high school as an example, because that's kind of where, if there is a trans kid, they probably started already, 13, 14. If you're on hormones, if you're a male to female trans person, you're on hormones, your physiology does change. So in my opinion, you can't really play on the boys because you're like at a different kind of level than the boys, but you're also at a different level than the girls. So it's kind of, it's a big gray area. And so then you want to say, well, you can't say trans people shouldn't play sports, because I think sports are an integral part of childhood, and people develop a lot of good characteristics from playing sports when young. But then you also can't give them their own team, because then it's segregation. It's just, there's no good answer at all, in my opinion. I've tried to make a video about it, and I'm like, well, I want to give a solution in the video, but I literally don't have one.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. Sabrina does suggest trans leagues, but that probably works better as adults than it does as children.
Yeah, would there even be enough kids?
Would there be enough or not? Well, the numbers are growing quickly.
Maybe now. Maybe in a few years there will definitely be enough to have its own league.
Yeah. But, yeah, for sure, and everything I've studied and interviews we've done, the hormones have a significant effect. But a biological male is typically taller, broader shoulders, naturally more muscular, and so on. So, and the idea that we have to test hormone levels to decide what's side of, or what sport you're going to play in. So it seems like the whole idea of athletics is that you don't take hormones. That used to be doping, and now you're supposed to dope in order to participate in a certain side.
Yeah,
so.
I know that the Olympics has a really strict thing, and they've kind of figured the issue out.
Yeah,
I have to research that.
Well, I know what it is. It's all based on hormones, and you just have to show that you've been on the therapy for a year. So it's actually, they've come out. Not surprising for an international organization, but they've come out quite liberally on the issue and basically said, as long as you can show you've been on the therapy for a year, you're good to go.
What's even that? I don't know. I mean, because you could start hormones at 25 and be 6'5", and being on hormones for a year isn't going to make you, I don't know. There are some really, really tall trans male to females that I would see as having a huge advantage, regardless of how long they're on hormones. So I don't know. It's hard.
Well, one of my answers is that, and I guess I'm going to be repeating myself from my Sophia interview, but is that not everything could be made to be equal and the same for everybody. Everybody has challenges. Transgender people have challenges. Believe it or not, there's even white males that have challenges.
Absolutely.
In fact, I was thinking I'm really going in a different direction right now, but I was thinking about this driving in because. What was the story? I think I was listening I was listening to Howard Stern, and Howard Stern was, famously, if you listen to him at all, he went to a mostly black high school, and he talked about how he used to get his butt kicked by blacks in high school. And he said, "Yeah, I remember when Martin Luther King was killing. Oh boy, I'm getting a beating today. Because,
oh my God,
there's some black guys are going to want to take it out on a white guy." And sure enough, he got beat up that day. But you know what? I went to some pretty rough public schools, and I got into some altercations with blacks, and I can tell you that more whites got beat up for being white than blacks got beat up for being blacks, at least when I was in high school. I'm not talking about Alabama down in the South, but I'm just talking about when I grew up, and Michael's nodding his head too. So,
depends where you live.
Everybody's got challenges to deal with, some more than others, and we can't turn everything upside down to make sure that there's everything's the playing field that's absolutely the same for everybody. I think that
Oh yeah.
we're going down a dangerous road when we try to do that.
Absolutely. And here's a really great example of it. My brother is straight, male, should have every advantage in life over me, right? Technically. He's in jail, his life is messed up, and I'm the one that's been honestly pretty successful for my age, and I'm the one that makes my parents proud, and I'm the one that maybe, statistically shouldn't have.
Right.
Like, I think my mom is always surprised by it. She's like, how are you the one who's like doing well and like all this stuff? So it's like, it just comes down to the person, and same with even just within the trans community. Some trans people have it way harder. Like if I was 6'5", I'd have it harder. It's just
Stop grouping people together and treat us as individuals. And I know that's one of your big critiques of the left, and how I would think, in your opinion, that the left uses the trans community.
absolutely. I often say like trans is used as like the political football. It's been weaponized, and it's been also monetized by both sides. And it's kind of become this thing that's like it's like a talking point rather than like we're talking about people, and the left should not have a monopoly on a group of people. Like,
Well, it seems like the left is always looking for an oppressed group that they can be the defenders of. And that's
right.
why they don't want to let go of the black community. They want the black community to believe that racism is still a major problem for you out there, and therefore you need us. Because guess what? If it's not a problem for you, you don't need us anymore.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why I get so much hate from that side, because I think they see me as sort of a traitor, or I've been
Yeah,
excommunicated.
if you were to take the position that we don't need you, thank you very much.
Because I don't.
Right. But that kills their whole reason for being.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I am an individual. I have gotten to where I've gotten in life. I'm self-made in every sense of the way, my body, my career, everything. I've never needed an advocacy group. I've never needed, a handout. I've never needed someone to, put their arms around me and say, oh, no, it's fine. I'm going to do everything for you. No, I've done everything myself. And I'm an individual.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I just kind of hit on why there's been this huge surge in transgenderism, and as far as it being in the public eye and it being so embraced by the left. Because I've likened it to or made the point that it seems to have really surged after gay marriage approval. There was all this stuff about gay and gay racism and gay marriage, and surprisingly, I mean, don't forget, Obama was elected president saying, I'm opposed to gay marriage. So all these people that want to call, everybody wants to call people homophobes who haven't or against gay marriage. Well, Obama was a homophobe until just recently. So that passes, Supreme Court thing happens, and the left, as I said, is always looking for that ostracized community that they can support. And they realize, holy cow, where do we go with gays now? What else can we look for to support the gay community and show how open-minded we are? Well, we better move down the letters. What's the next letter on the list? And it's T, the transgender, and boom, that becomes their cause celeb.
Absolutely. And here's what's been so frustrating for me is that a lot of times, like, their advocacy and the things they do to help the trans community do not. A lot of the times they just kind of make us look bad. And like we were saying earlier, it's a lot of people who are not trans who want to speak for trans people. For me, I've always been the sort of person to where, like, a lot of people come to my YouTube channel who are more on the conservative side, more on the right-wing side, who have either, maybe they live in middle America, never met a trans person. Maybe they have negative connotations about trans people prior to coming to my channel. They see that commonality in me that, like, oh my God, there can be a trans person who isn't sort of the caricature of what the left has created, and suddenly there's a relatability, and suddenly there's, okay, maybe I can get with this. And I think that's important, and I do it by just living my life.
Yeah, it's ironic because, as I said, I would think that you by far would get the least haters out there because you're just out there being yourself. I think it's the ones that seem to be sticking to a particular agenda that are getting more of the negative reaction.
It's transparent. It's completely transparent. A lot of these advocates, oh my God, there's some that are just so bad. I made a video about this person named, I think his name is Alok or Aluk or something like that. And you should watch the video. It's called "You Can't Unsee This" on my channel. The most ridiculous person ever speaking for trans people, and they're all kind of like that. And so I think a much better form of advocacy is just living your life, being yourself, and letting people see you're just a normal person.
So let's get a little bit more into transgender politics and the parties. I mean, first of all, I think you've made it clear you're not a one-issue voter, right? And this, I had this conversation with Sophia too, and she said she's not a one-issue voter. Where the parties are on trans issues, I imagine, is important to you, but there's also the economy, there's foreign policy, there's a lot of other issues.
So much more. I'd be so ignorant to just be like, I'm going to vote on who has this feeling about trans people. It's like, that would be nice if that was the only thing I had to worry about.
Okay, but the parties do have their positions when it comes to LGBT issues. And so as far as where the parties, in your view, should be, so I was ticking through the Republican platform, and I hope this information is correct because I got it off of a website, so you can't always trust it. But apparently this was the Republican platform on marriage equality, and that the Republican Party still it is not. It says law government regulation should only recognize marriage as the union of one man and one woman. So that apparently it's still the position of the Republican Party that there shouldn't be gay marriage. It should only be between a man and a woman. What's your thoughts about that?
I'm not sure I quite believe that. I think that was the case in like 2008, 9, 10.
As far as their platform?
Yeah.
This supposedly is from the 2016 platform, but let's assume it's correct. But if it's not, then I'll correct it when I do my lead in. But bottom line is, I'm just curious, what's your position? You think gay marriage should be permitted?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I think honestly that may still be the technical platform of what a few people at the top want to put out. But I think in terms of cultural resonance and what people actually think on the ground level, I think these days you're kind of hard pressed to find two people in a room who really want to debate about that.
Well, a related issue, because I equivocate on gay marriage solely over the issue of essentially adoption. I have a particular personal view, but it's not something I share alone. I think that there's tons of studies that back me up that the ideal environment for a child to be raised in is a loving father and a loving mother, that's the preferred method of raising a child. And there's been studies that seem to have borne that out. And if that's true, I'm sure, and we could debate that, and we will, but if that's true, then I think that when it comes to adoption, all other things being equal, preference should be given to the loving male and loving female couple over the two male couple or two female couple. So that's the only reason I hesitate on gay marriage, because I'm like, well, if that means that when it comes to adoption, all other things being equal, the babies could go to the gay couple or the straight couple, I'm not a fan of that. So I'll kick that over to you. What do you think?
I would say that I completely agree that there are studies that show that the best possible environment for a kid is a mom and a dad, the typical family unit. That is statistically what raises the most productive, law-abiding person. I think that, but like I said, two things can be true at once. I think that is true. Whereas we also live in a world where there are a lot of babies out here who cannot find parents. There are a lot of kids who grow up in a foster system. I personally know people who, once you turn 18, you're out, and your life is like, I could not even function as an adult living my life in foster care, never having parents. So I think that,
Well, keep in mind, I'm not saying no to gay adoption.
Right,
what I'm saying is, all other things being equal,
right,
I want the preference to go to the straight couple.
Right. I'm just not convinced that we're like at a point where there's, first of all, that much, like, there's so many kids in the system that I don't think it really comes down to like, oh, we have to pick, they have to go to this one or this one. I think that like,
well, actually, adoption, if anything, there's a shortage of children.
Is there?
Yeah, I believe that's true. In fact, Sabrina told a really interesting story. She was adopted. And I can't imagine a time in California when abortion was illegal. But guess what? At the time that she was born, she's mid-50s, abortion was illegal. And her mother, thank God for her, obviously, had her and put her up for adoption. But at that point, there were lots of babies up for adoption. And there was discrimination against race based on that. So she lied about the fact that the father was Mexican on the adoption papers because she wanted it to be a white baby to make sure that she was adopted.
Oh, wow.
These days, it's a shortage of children. I mean, I'm sure that's why people go to China to adopt and Cambodia to adopt and so on.
I genuinely did not even know there was a shortage. I was
Yeah.
coming at that position from the context of thinking there was just so many kids without parents. I didn't know that. I guess then if the situation were to come down to there's a shortage, has to go to one set, then I mean, maybe the ugly truth would be if I was making the decision, maybe I guess I would pick the mother and the father then.
Yeah, it just concerns me. Again, I think it's something that is being done to reduce stigma, but ignoring science, ignoring these studies about the importance of a loving father and a loving mother. Because if we're just going to toss that out and say that, no, one woman, fine, one man, fine, two men, fine, two women, fine, etc., and just toss that out, well, what does that mean about the issues that, for instance, the black community is facing? We know that it's facing, unwed mothers, black fathers black fathers not being there. Well, if having a father is not that important, as they're now activists are trying to teach and hijacking these associations and changing the science about the importance of a loving father and a loving mother, then okay, I guess that's not the problem in the black community. I guess lack of fathers really isn't it. Must be something else. Oh, maybe it's racism.
Right. That's another thing. Very taboo to say. I know it's a little off, but that's also another huge taboo is like the problem with, fathers leaving families in the black community. There's been so many studies that a huge root of, people are so much more likely to go to jail if you don't have a father. People are so much more likely to be poor if you don't have a father. But people don't like saying that.
Yeah, well, Obama used to say it. He really, in my view, if you recall, when he was running for office, he wasn't embraced by the black community early. This is another thing, a history thing that people kind of forget. Clinton was supposed to win, and the black community was supporting Clinton. I mean, the black community, they always call Bill Clinton the first black president or honorary black president because the black community embraced him so much. So they were all on board with Hillary, and then Barack Obama, who, let's face it, is not full black, he's half black, comes on the scene, and he was talking in a way that was kind of tough talk for the black community about the lack of black fathers and some of the kind of tough medicine that perhaps needs to be accepted in the community to really address the issues. Ultimately, he was embraced by the black community, I think, frankly, because he was just so damn good. I mean, he was just going out there and killing it. You had Hillary out there, who's just a horrible speaker and not a likable person. And Obama is just...
He mastered the media and kind of what Trump did, honestly.
Yeah, he was just brilliant. And so the blacks ultimately got on board. But then I think once he got in office, I think that, when Jesse Jackson's knocking on the door and this and that, and the black activists, you give the black activists what you want. Do you really want to fight with them? They helped get you elected.
Yeah.
And I think we lost some of that. Sort of related to that, this is Sophia's opinion. I'm curious of yours. She feels very let down by Trump and felt that on the campaign trail that he was acting as if he was a friend of the LGBT community. And let's face it, I mean, socially, Trump is pretty liberal and historically has been pretty liberal and it's hard not to be when you're in New York. Mm-hmm. But that since taking office, he's really done a 180. She's saying that he lied, and she uses the F word now to refer to Trump.
What word?
The F word. We won't use it on this podcast. We will.
The F-U word or the F-A word?
She said fucking Trump.
Oh.
Fucking Trump.
Yeah. Oh. I don't feel let down, but that is mostly because, again, I just care so much more about other stuff that I'm so happy about. I care.
Okay, so let's focus then on what he's done on LGBT issues, if anything. I mean, we know there's the trans military issue.
Yeah.
So was that bother you?
Well, here, two things. Okay. The trans military thing was never actually put into action. It was just words.
Typical of Trump.
Typical, which it literally was a tweet. It never was legislation. It was never enacted. And I wasn't the biggest fan of it because I felt like there's so much more I care about that he should be doing. But it also never happened, so I can't be that mad about it.
Well, and let's just say flat out, let's say it did happen. Is that, when it comes to trans issues, is that a big issue for you? That, gosh darn it, heck yes, trans need to be permitted to serve in the military?
No, because I don't want to be drafted. I do not want to be drafted. Ban me. Keep me away.
I think you
That's
might be in the
first
last. You're 25, right? I think that might be the last year of potential draft. Did you have to sign up? Did you have to sign anything when you were 18?
I did. I remember.
You did.
I
So
remember
you do
signing
still have
it.
that.
Yeah.
Because I signed that too. It doesn't mean there's a draft in place, but you have to. I think it's called
Means
registering for the
in
draft.
case. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you run back after your transition and say, by the way, I'm trans now, so take me off the list?
I think being on estrogen disqualifies you, thank God. But I can see it from both sides. I think that there are so many disqualifications as far as joining the military, and especially being on the front lines. If you have an abnormally large pinky toe, you can practically be disqualified. I mean, there's so many things, especially health things. And so, yeah, like, I think it's completely reasonable to say, it's not probably the best to have people on the front lines who are on hormones.
Well, not to mention, depending on where you are in your transition, et cetera, we've talked earlier, gender dysphoria is a serious condition. Whatever you want to call it, it's something that people struggle with. And
it can lead to suicide. And the veteran suicide rate is really, really bad as well. So if you want to compound that, I could actually see how that would be bad. I will say the only argument that I feel like didn't really hold as far as that was like the whole like we shouldn't be paying for sex changes, because the math actually, it was like a really small portion, and I think it's only happened a couple times, and there are things like Viagra that like cost more than sex changes. That's the only thing I didn't see really hold that much water. Having said that, like I said, I can see why someone on hormones should not be on the front lines.
What about insurance coverage for reassignment surgery? Should be mandated to be part of any insurance coverage?
That's one that I always struggle with. I don't actually have a super concrete opinion on it because I can see both sides. I can see how if someone is in that place of like they'll never be able to afford it, if they're suicidal, if it's considered healthcare, then perhaps. However, I will say, speaking for myself as an individual, because that's all I can do, it was the most amazing sense of accomplishment to be able to afford my surgeries myself, save up for them and pay for them myself. I remember afterwards feeling like I am amazing. I saved up for this, I worked hard, and I made what I wanted happen. So I would say people should not discount that either, like working for it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I would think maybe I'll help you formulate your opinion, because I know
it's hard.
I know you're a small government person or individual freedom person,
I am.
right? So perhaps your position would be, as it is mine, that government shouldn't be mandating.
Oh no,
anything.
government should not be. But I think
Right.
private companies and stuff, if they want to cover it, then that's completely fine.
Right. But government is mandating that if you want to sell insurance, you better cover this, you better give free birth control pills. That was part of Obamacare. But even before Obamacare, California and all states had all kinds of laundry list of laws that said if you want to sell health insurance in this state, you better cover this. And the list just kept getting longer and longer because the politicians wanted to prove how great they were for the people, that, those big bad insurance companies, they better cover all these things. Well, guess what? That makes it more expensive. And if they have to cover gender reassignment surgery, it's going to make it more expensive. But if government is going to mandate all these different things, then screw it. Probably should mandate gender reassignment surgery too, because if that truly is the proper treatment for something called gender dysphoria, then that's something that should be covered. If you're going to mandate a bunch of coverages for things.
That's what sucks, is that it's the only treatment. It doesn't work for everyone. I mean, this is going to sound kind of weird, but like if some people probably shouldn't transition because it can make it worse for them. Like I've seen people who do wait until 45 and maybe are 6'4", and there's just no way transitioning would ever be effective, and it can just end up being a little bit of a waste of money, if that makes sense. So I guess
part of it might be in really, what is really understanding what is your reason for wanting the full gender reassignment surgery. Sabrina articulated the view that she thinks many transgendered women are getting it because they want to attract a man, and they think that that will allow them to attract a man. And Sabrina says that the ones that do it for that reason
That's toxic.
are disappointed because they say for most men, not all, but for most, if a man is looking for a vagina, he's going to go find a woman who was born with a vagina as opposed to a trans woman, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've had this conversation with my fiance, which is like, I can understand the headspace of being like, to find a husband, to find a man, like I need to have that going on for me down there surgically. But then I think like, well, if it's a heterosexual man who wants a woman with a vagina, then why wouldn't he pick someone who had a vagina from birth rather than someone who had one surgically augmented? I personally find that men who are attracted to trans women are much more attracted to trans women with penises. That's just what they look for, because you can get a woman with a vagina from a woman with a vagina, if that makes sense.
basically exactly what Sabrina said.
Yeah.
And I think, so we've sort of covered that, but you're the first person really that's reaffirmed what she said.
It's true.
And I think it's an important thing for people in the community to know so they don't make that mistake if that's the reason they're doing it.
Plus, you should never change yourself for someone else. To me, that's not a valid transition if you're doing it to please someone else or to get attention from someone else. It should be about you and what you want in your path.
Okay, I think we just have a couple other trans political issues, and we'll let you go.
Okay.
One is the bathroom issue. There's a California law mandating that we have these gender-neutral bathrooms, and therefore we now have these silly signs that have a picture of a man and then a picture of a woman and then a picture of somebody wearing half a skirt that is supposed to be a trans person, I think. But what do you think should be the policy?
I don't think there should be any policy. I think policies attached to bathroom are nonsensical. I think that trans people have been using the restroom since the beginning of restrooms and the beginning of trans people, and there's never been an issue until now when it's been heavily politicized by both sides. I've never had a problem going to a bathroom, pre-transition, post-transition. I think that there is a lot of fear-mongering on the right that like little girls are going to walk into a bathroom and see a grown man's penis, which is wrong. And then I think there's a lot of fear-mongering on the left, which is like it is so terribly dangerous for a trans person to go to I was going to say jail, to the bathroom. And if we don't have these legislations, then they're going to get effing murdered, which is like.
Do you know, by the way, I don't know how much research you've done into this issue. Do you know what the true origin was of this debate?
You can remind me. I probably know.
No. I don't know.
Oh, then I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious because what I'm curious about is who started this fight. Was it the left or the right that started this? Because I honestly don't know the answer. Was it the left insisting on special bathrooms, or was it the right insisting on passing something that barred? And I don't know the answer.
Chicken or the egg? I don't know. But
anyway, but now we are where we are, and California, I think, totally unnecessarily wades into this because, as you point out, it's really not an issue. It's a non-issue. The thing I like to point out is that, well, gay men are allowed in the men's bathroom, so you have. We're not concerned about that. Gay women are allowed in the women's bathroom. Why should we be concerned about a trans being in one bathroom or the other?
Yeah. Everyone just needs to shut up and let people go to the bathroom and not be mad about it. Like, it's so annoying.
But then when you start passing these kind of laws, California trying to prove to themselves how liberal they can be in passing these mandated laws, that's where I fear for the community, and I've articulated this on the show.
It adds tension.
I fear backlash.
Me too.
Yeah, because there should be acceptance, but it seems like acceptance sometimes turns into promotion, or it's I am concerned. I think that some of these athlete rules that you and I both struggle with. How do you deal with it? But when you've got transgendered women winning the state championship in track and taking scholarships away and so on, and then people see when they take their children to go to the bathroom in Santa Monica, as I did. I don't have children, but I say children because, a child sees this sign with a transgender person, and now a parent is put in the position that now they have to explain transgenderism potentially to a child that maybe the parent wasn't ready to address that with the child. So these laws, I think are pushing out ahead further than until recently. I mean, there have always been really sad, scary incidents of like trans people going in restrooms and getting
assaulted or harassed or whatever for being in there. But that's really far and few in between. I think now more than ever there actually is an issue. Now people are almost on the lookout. People who want to enact some sort of like, gotcha to a trans person. I've seen news articles and videos where biological women are ripped out of bathrooms because they look like men. And it's just a woman. It's just like I don't know if it's a lesbian or just a masculine woman. There was one, like a police officer literally went into the bathroom, like told this biological woman who just looked kind of rough that she had to show her ID or get out, and he took her out of the bathroom. So it's just adding so much unnecessary tension and conflict, in my opinion.
Okay, the last one is the baking the cake. How do you feel about the person who doesn't want to, the baker that doesn't want to bake the cake for the gay wedding?
Leave the Christians alone and leave the gays alone. Oh my God. Listen, if there was some place I knew didn't want to serve me, I wouldn't go. If it was some huge epidemic where you couldn't find anywhere to serve you, then okay, maybe we should like check the Christians a little bit, but just don't go places that don't want to serve you. And also Christians, maybe not make a huge deal about it either. It's like people just need to learn how to get along is the biggest thing. Just get along.